As political and military disagreements continue to fragment the SPLM-IO party, and with the Kit Gwang group ousting first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar as chairman of the SPLM-IO and commander-in-chief of the SPLA-IO forces, what impact will this have on the peace process? Join us as we discuss this and more only on Beyond the Headlines. Our guest on the program is Mr. Puok Both Baluang, who is the SPLM-IO Director of Information and Public Relations. Mr. Baluang is also the acting press secretary in the office of the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar. Thank you for coming on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you for having me.
The Army spokesperson for the SPLA-IO under General Samuel Gadwash Dual, Brigadier General William Gachiath Deng, accused forces loyal to Dr. Riek Machar of launching an attack at Majanis Kit Gwang headquarters on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on August 7th, 2021. According to the press release from Brigadier General William Gachiath, he stated the following: after they had received their naive orders from the so-called acting chief Gabriel Duop Lam, who falsely misled the innocent army to capture the chairman and commander-in-chief General Samuel Gadwash Dual at Majanis along with his senior commanders. But as a result, the mighty forces of the SPLA-IO under General Samuel Gadwash Dual heavily responded to the attackers and completely annihilated them. What led to this military operation against Samuel Gadwash and his forces in Majanis on August the 7th?
Well, I believe what Gadwash has cited in that press statement of his, none of the content is true. The forces of the Kit Gwang group, they are the one who initiated the attack on our forces in Majanis. Based on that, our forces have preserved their rights to self-defense. So I would like to tell the public that none of what has been said by William Gadwash is true. Our forces did not attack their forces.
So what led General Samuel Gadwash forces to attack your forces?
We believe that they have been ordered by some parties to the agreement, which is the security organization here in Juba, in the former IT Gono, to let that declaration, aiming that they might destabilize the SPLM-IO for their general aspects. And they seek also to derail the implementation of the peace agreement, because they think that when there's a division within the SPLM-IO, this is where the agreement can collapse. But for them, the SPLM-IO has not was not actually touched and was not affected by the defection of the three generals in Majanis. And I would like to acknowledge to the public through you today that the only forces of Kit Gwang, there is 4 small number of forces, and they are located in Majanis in Upper Nile State. And we believe taking people back to the armed conflict is not the rational decision at the moment. The people of South Sudan has suffered enough, and they need peace and they need stability. And all that can happen through the implementation of the peace agreement, not through such a naive attempt to destabilize the situation in Majanis and in South Sudan in general.
When you compare the forces of General Samuel Gadwash and the forces under Dr. Riek Machar, what are the difference?
As I mentioned, the Kit Gwang group, they only have forces in Majanis, and there was a split within the sector 1 that was led by General Johnson Uloj. After he was released from the command of Chapter 1 of Sector 1, there was a split within the forces, and their forces, they're very small comparing to our forces in that area in particular as El Maganis. The other 9 sectors of the SPLM-SPLA-IO and the general headquarters of the SPLM-SPLA-IO in DL, they are still under the able leadership of Dr. Riek Machar in Durban.
Now we'll go ahead and address this further on, but let's go ahead and move on. Confusion has been raised about when Dr. Riek dismissed General Samuel Gatwech from his position as the General Chief of Staff for the SPLA-IO. Therefore, when did the dismissal of General Samuel Gatwech take place, and how long after that was he nominated to become the Presidential Advisor for Peace? In addition, what led to his nomination to become the Presidential Advisor for Peace, a position that he ended up declining?
Well, what people need to know is that Dr. Riek, when the time that he was in Khartoum, has talked and consulted General Gatwech Dual about that him taking a political position, because in the criteria of the unified forces, there was an age limit in that criteria, and General Gatwech is over that age. So there's a need for him just to, as he was part of the conflict, he needed to be part of the peace process. And he was nominated to the position of advisor of peace so that he can help in the implementation of the peace agreement. And he has given Dr. Riek Machar his consent to take that position. His name was nominated and submitted to the president, but the delay was in the part of the president. Almost for the 8 months, Dr. Riek Machar was fighting for his appointment. And when finally the president accepted to appoint him on the 22nd of June this year, 2021, Dr. Riek has issued a relief of General Gatwech Dual from his position as the Chief of Staff, because he cannot be a Chief of Staff in SPLM-IO and also resume his work as advisor for peace. This is when he was released for his position on the backdrop of his appointment by the president of the peace advisor.
Peter Adwok, the former Minister of Mining, stated that General Samuel Gatwech was dismissed because of his refusal to take up the advisory position that President Salva Kiir had offered him.
This is not true. And he was aware about all the process, and he was informed days before the president announced his appointment as a presidential advisor for peace.
On August 3rd, 2021, the Kit Gwang declaration was issued by General Samuel Gatwech, General Johnson Olong, and Commander Thomas Mabor Dual. Part of the declaration read as follows. During the meeting, the military command leadership discussed serious matters that addressed why the chairman and commander-in-chief, Dr. Riek Machar Teng Durgan, absconded the movement without consulting the military leadership, opted to go to Juba, and took with him all political forces. And 3 days later, he was appointed and accepted to take oath as the first vice president of the Republic of South Sudan. While in Juba, the team that was supposed to represent the armed opposition in the agreement all went asleep on peace implementation. They neither carried out on any proper communication, nor had they been clarifying to the leadership why they had taken such an impulsive decision. As a result, the military leadership found out that there was no option rather than to come up with a decision, and finally, we have decided to declare the denouncement of Dr. Riek Machar Teng Durgan from the chairmanship of the SPLM-IO and Commander-in-Chief of the SPLA-IO forces effective from the date of the announcement. Now, based on the declaration, what leverage of influence does Dr. Riek Machar have left over the political wing of the SPLM-IO, as well as the military wing of the party?
Well, first of all, the military wing in the SPLM-IO did not decide the fate of the movement in general. That's the role of the convention, first. Second is the role of the political bureau in the SPLM-IO, and third is the role of the NLC with the National Liberation Council. The three generals did not compose the military council of the SPLM-SPLA-IO. The military council of the SPLM-IO composed of, first, the commander-in-chief of the forces, which is Dr. Riek. Second is the chief of staff. Third is the deputies of the chief of staff, and fourth is the sector command of the SPLM-IO, the 9th sector command of the SPLA-IO, plus the commander of the headquarters. Now, General Gatwich has been released from his position on the 22nd of June. That means before they declare that they have defected or joined the other group. Second, General Johnson Olin and Mabor, they were also released from the command of Sector 1 and Sector 3, respectively. That means they do not have authority or the quorum to decide on behalf of the SPLM-SPLA-IO. The SPLM-SPLA-IO has sat here in Juba, the political bureau of the SPLM-SPLA-IO, and has condemned that move by the three generals. And also, they have said that the SPLM-SPLA-IO stand firm behind the able leadership of Dr. Riek Machar. The 9 sectors of the SPLA-IO, plus our headquarters in Deal, also, plus the political bureau, all of them, they are standing firm behind Dr. Riek Machar. That's why you don't see any forces or there's any defection apart from the three generals in Magenis in the other part of South Sudan.
Now, there have been cases whereby, for instance, the SPLM-IO party in Australia is behind it and in support of General Gatwich, and they are now refusing to support Dr. Riek Machar. It appears that Riek Machar is losing support among the SPLM-IO members.
This is not true. The defections happens in this movement a while back, maybe since 2015. And the movement is still strong and keep moving on. These are few individuals that we think that they have been misled by the propaganda of General William Gadiad and other people.
That is interesting that you've stated that. In the Kit Gwang declaration, Dr. Riek Machar was accused of inciting division within the party. And according to the Kit Gwang declaration, Dr. Riek Machar has used his policy of divide and rule within the SPLM-SPLA-IO for the last 8 years, led to many splits in the movement, such as July 2015, August 2016, and March 2020. And this is not his first time to rush into such naive decision, but it has been his habitual decision to mobilize the innocent people to rise up against the system. After he gets his position, he abandons the cause and the vision, and later opts to leave behind the poor people without appropriate organization. The best example was what had happened in 2002 when he rose against Dr. John Garang de Mabior. In 1991, fought the war that lasted for 11 years. They later left the movement and joined the SPLM-A faction of Tarit. And all forces under his command were left miserable and unorganized, then later were badly embarrassed by the regime and given a name as not confirmed, which meant their ranks were not in the system, and it's believed that the same scenario is applying now, but it must be controlled as the SPLM-IO are still alive with strong cadres. Now, what is the response to the mentioned accusations that have been leveled against the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar, that he leads people to war, but then he ensures that he gets the benefits of other people's hard work, other people's blood, sweat, and tears?
Well, I would like to stress that Dr. Riek did not lead anyone to war. The current war happening in the current conflict in South Sudan was incited to the people of South Sudan by the regime at that time. And they have committed atrocities. And everyone in that time was for himself. Everyone fled out of Juba to protect himself. So until the formation of the SPLM-IO in Nasser in 2014. So I would like to refute that Dr. Riek has lead people to war or just lead them to their death. Secondly, I would like to refute what they have been mentioning that, or they have alleged toward Dr. Riek Machar, this pathetic attempt by this group just to tarnish the good reputation of Dr. Riek Machar. Third, I would like to acknowledge that we really feel the suffering of our forces in the cantonment sites in the assembly areas. And Dr. Riek has never turned his eyes, turn his back to our forces. We feel they're suffering. And those who are speaking out of the country, they don't know that what the difficulties that those in the one in Juba that they're trying to accomplish. We are here to implement the agreement with a party or parties that don't have a genuine and political will to implement the agreement. It was not an easy task, and it is not an easy task for us. So we believe that we are working tirelessly on how to implement this agreement in letter and spirit, and we urge the other partners, the SPLM-SPLA-IO partners to the agreement, to demonstrate their commitment to implement the peace agreement.
How long has Dr. Riek Machar's movements been restricted? Because that's one thing that has been raised as an issue, is that he's not permitted to move outside of Juba and meet with his constituents or meet with his supporters. So therefore, General Gadwech and General Johnson Launch saw that, okay, if Dr. Riek Machar is unable to move due to his restrictions and him raising concerns about the harassment that he's facing, why should they even trust their own safety by coming to Juba and also following along with the peace process?
I mentioned it earlier that we agree with them that there's a lack of implementation of the security arrangement as well. But also, I would like to stress that, or to confirm that Dr. Riek is a free man. He was released from the unjust and unlawful restrictions set upon him by the IGAD. The reasons why Dr. Riek is not moving now outside of Juba, it's because he is assuming also the position of the first vice president, and he has obligations to this country beside being the first, being the chairman and commander-in-chief of the SPLA-IO. It was resolved in the presidency that Dr. Riek, he will visit and tour all the forces of the SPLM-SPLA-IO, but the time is not conducive at the moment because there's still outstanding issues need to be resolved. Recently, the RTNLA has just been reconstituted, and there's still other issues have to be addressed here in Juba as based on his position as the first vice president, because he's also the chair of the governing cluster. So we believe that when the right time comes, if or when these issues, the outstanding issues are here being resolved, because we still have now the issue of the formation of the government in the administrative areas. This is one of the outstanding issues. Plus, we still have the formation of the National Commission. This is one of the outstanding issues also. Plus the issue of the security arrangement, because there's a meeting, there was a conference, actually it's a workshop, was held here in Juba between the 10th to 11th of May 2019 under auspices of IGAD and RJMAC, where the security mechanisms agreed on the structure and the formation of the unified command of the forces. Now, President Salva refuses to accept the outcome of that meeting. This is why the head of IGAD and the Sudan Prime Minister, Dr. Hamdok, visited Juba to discuss this issue. This is one of the critical issues, which is the formation of the unified command, which will lead to the graduation of the forces. These all are concerns that and critical issues has to be addressed.
Now, I'd like to go on to some of the concerns that have been raised by members of the SPLM-IO party, as well as those that have split from the party itself. And that is the issue of nepotism. It keeps coming back over and over again. Riek Machar, of course, has been accused of practicing nepotism. For instance, in the case of appointing his wife, Angelina Tang, as the Minister of Defense, and also other relatives and family members to the dissatisfaction of his constituents. Now, what is happening in this instance whereby I'm sure there are competent people who could take on these leadership roles? Why did Dr. Riek Machar choose to appoint his wife and other family members in key positions within the SPLM-IO party?
What other family members? I only know Madame Angelina. She's, yes, wife of His Excellency Dr. Riek Machar, but she was the head of the security committee in the SPLM-SPLA-IO. Those people that criticize this issue, why did it not raise up this matter when the people were still in the bush? The SPLM-SPLA-IO has no any article declining that someone that cannot hold a position due to his relations with one of the senior member of a member of the SPLM-SPLA-IO. Madame Angelina, she's a competent leader in South Sudan, and she was appointed by her constituency, which is the Unity State in Bentiu. She was not appointed by Dr. Riek Machar. She was represented at a state of the Unity State. The members of that state, when they were instructed by the first vice president to select their ministers, they selected Madame Angeline. So I don't know what's all these accusations coming from.
What about in the case of Ye Dak Ri, who is the chief of security for the SPLA-IO? Isn't he related to Dr. Riek Machar?
Ye Dak is hailed from the same town as Dr. Riek Machar, but they're not related. Secondly, General Ye, during the outbreak of the conflict in South Sudan in 2013, he was the head of the protocol, head of the petroleum directorate in the national security. He is one of the senior generals in the national security. And based on that, he was appointed in that area. But I will stress that there's no any articles in the constitution of the SPLM-SPLA-IO cited that Dr. Riek Machar should represent only the people coming from his hometown. General Ye is a competent general, and we believe that he deserves that position that he's holding now. But also, they're not related.
And what about the case of the Minister of Health, Elizabeth Achue Young? Isn't he Dr. Riek Machar's son's mother-in-law?
Yes, that's true. But the people of Warab, they're the one who nominated her to that position because she was holding the National Committee for Health in the SPLM-SPLA-IO all along.
Okay. Now, on August 11, 2021, Henry Odwar resigned from his position as Minister of Mining. He was a leading member of Dr. Riek Machar's SPLM-IO party and was the SPLM-IO deputy chairman. Reasons for his resignation was that he was suffering from poor health. However, after his resignation, he lent his support and now stands behind the Kit Gwang Declaration. What do you believe really prompted the minister, Henry Odwar, the former minister, to join the Kit Gwang group?
Well, it is right to decide who or which group that he will be associated with, because in the SPLM-SPLA-IO, we believe that any member and every South Sudanese, they have a right to association and right to express their right to express their views. The day he resigned or he has sent his resignation to His Excellency the First Vice President, they spoke on the phone, and Dr. Riek has accepted it, his resignation, due to his health issues, because he has been out of the country for almost a year now, and he has not resumed his work in the ministry. And the Ministry of Mining is one of the important ministry in South Sudan, and it deserves to be run as other ministries. Based on that, his resignation was accepted, and the SPLM-IO was about to sit as a political bureau and leadership to decide who will be his successor in that ministry. But we were surprised in the evening hours that he declared his support to Kit Gwang Group. He did not address this issue with His Excellency Dr. Riek or the other members of the leadership, because if he has an issues or he has a concerns regarding within the SPLM-IO that led to his defection, we believe he will address it, because this is how institutions and political institutions works. If there's a problem, people will discuss it in the level of the party, and then if these issues that are not being resolved now, the member have the right to resign or just to take a decision that suits him or her. We believe he did not address these matters, all the things that he has alleged in his press statement. He did not discuss it with the leadership of the SPLM-IO.
Yeah.
We believe now.
Yes. Now the president is saying that there are a lot of misunderstandings, disagreements within the SPLM-IO, and is calling upon your party to resolve the many challenges that you're facing, so that the peace process could move on along. And he considers also perhaps a factor is Henry Edouard resigning, and also the disagreements that are taking place between Dr. Riek Machar and General Olon, as well as Gadwech and others.
Yeah, well, we believe it was a noble call from the president, but we have everything under control in the SPLM-IO. And today, His Excellency Dr. Riek Machar received members of SPLM-IO caucus, members of the parliament, and they were briefed on the genesis of the Kit Gwang group. And we believe there will be a committee will be formed to go and discuss with the group of Kit Gwang group, so that we can resolve all the matters.
Now, lastly, in conclusion, first, Vice President Dr. Riek Machar has condemned the unilateral formation of the governments in Ruang as well as Abyei administrative areas. What are Dr. Riek Machar's areas of contention on this matter? And what remedial steps have been taken to resolve this ongoing issue as it relates to the power sharing agreement over the mentioned administrative areas?
Well, in Addis Ababa, the two principals met in the presence of His Excellency Abdullah Hamdok, the head of IGAD, and they discussed the issue of number and boundaries of the states. And the meeting resolved that the country should be referred back to 10 states. But the president has requested the IGAD that he could come back to Juba and consult with the people. This is where that he issued a decree referring back the country to 10 states, but he created another 3 administrative areas. These administrative areas, they are not part of South Sudan, because it was stated very clear that we'll have 10 states with 79 counties. Now, after the president created these 3 administrative areas, okay, but for the sake of peace, we have agreed that we accepted these 3 administrative areas, and there was a committee was formed to discuss the power sharing in these states. the SPLM-IO, the agreement gave us a ratio in the power sharing is 27%. We believe this 27, and it was agreed by the committee, of the high-level committee, that we will have the same ratio in the administrative areas. But we were surprised that these administrative areas went on and formed its own government. First of all, the chief administrative areas, they don't have the authority to appoint a constitutional post holders. Secondly, they did not include members of the SPLM-SPLA-IO, that the list of nominees was sent to the president. So we believe now there's a need for the president to call all the administrative areas to revoke their decisions, so that we can form this government, the government in the administrative areas, based on the outcome of the high-level committee to share powers in these administrative areas.
Thank you, Mr. Puok Both Baluang, for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines. Mr. Baluang is the SPLM-IO Director of Information and Public Relations. He's also the acting press secretary in the office of the first Vice President, Dr. Riek Machar.
I'm happy just to be here with you.
Yes, thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at Sunrise Media.